The church smelled of dying roses and incense so thick it coated my throat. I stood at the back entrance, my fingers trembling against the heavy oak door, feeling the rough grain beneath my palm like a lifeline to something real. Everything else felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. 3 days. That's all it had been since my father's funeral. 3 days since I'd learned the truth about the debts, the gambling, the promises made to men who lived in shadows. 3 days since a name I'd only heard whispered in fear became the architect of my fate. Dante Moretti. I'd never seen him before yesterday. Never knew that monsters could wear $1,000 suits and move through the world like they owned every atom of air. But I knew now. God, I knew now. The wedding dress they'd brought me hung heavy on my frame, all silk and lace that cost more than my nursing school tuition. It fit perfectly, which somehow made everything worse. They'd known my measurements, had been watching me, planning this. My breath came short and sharp. Through the crack in the door, I could see the church filling with people I didn't know, men in dark suits with harder eyes, women dripping in diamonds that caught the candlelight like shards of ice. No one from my life, no friends. My mother had died when I was 12. My father 3 days ago, leaving me with nothing but debt, and this transaction, masquerading as a marriage, Miss Russo. The voice behind me was soft but firm. I turned to see an older woman, elegant in midnight blue, her silver hair swept up in a chignon. She'd introduced herself yesterday as Mrs. Castellano, though I suspected that wasn't her real purpose here. It's time. I can't. The words scraped out of me. Please. There has to be another way. I can work. I can pay back whatever Your father owed $3 million. Her voice wasn't unkind, but it held no mercy. Money borrowed from Mr. Moretti's family. Money that was supposed to fund a shipment that never arrived. Your father gambled it away instead. That kind of betrayal requires payment. Then take everything. The house, the car, whatever. There is nothing left. She stepped closer, and I caught the scent of gardenias. This is mercy, child. Mr. Moretti could have demanded blood. Instead, he's demanded you. Mercy. I wanted to laugh, but my throat had closed around something that felt like broken glass. Why? I whispered. Why me? He doesn't even know me. Something flickered across Mrs. Castellano's face. Surprise, maybe, or pity. That's not a question I can answer, but I can tell you this. Dante Moretti always has his reasons, and he always gets what he wants. She adjusted my veil with gentle hands that felt like a cage closing. Through the delicate lace, the world became softer, hazier, like I was already disappearing. The organ music swelled. Wagner, processional, my execution march. Mrs. Castellano opened the door fully, and I saw him for the second time in my life. Dante Moretti stood at the altar like a king surveying his kingdom. Even from this distance, I could feel the weight of his presence, the way everyone in the church seemed to orbit around him, pulled by some dark gravity. He wore black, of course, a suit that probably cost more than most people made in a year, cut to emphasize the breadth of his shoulders, the lean power of his frame. But it was his face that stopped my heart. Yesterday, when his men had come to collect me, I'd been too shocked to really see him. I'd noticed the sharp jawline, the dark hair swept back from his forehead, the way he'd looked at me like he was cataloging every detail. But I'd been numb, drowning in grief and terror. Now, as I stood at the threshold of this forced union, I really looked. He was young, maybe 30, 32. That shocked me. I'd expected someone older, harder. A crime lord with silver at his temples, and cruelty etched into every line. Instead, Dante Moretti was beautiful, in the way a blade is beautiful, all clean lines and lethal purpose. His face could have been carved from marble. High cheekbones, a straight nose that had probably been broken once, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled. But his eyes, God, his eyes. Even across the expanse of the church, I felt them lock onto me. They were the color of dark honey shot through with amber, gold-flecked and burning with an intensity that made my skin prickle. He didn't look away, didn't blink, just watched me with a focus that felt like hands against my skin. "Walk," Mrs. Castellano murmured. "Don't run. Don't hesitate. You'll only make it worse." My feet moved without permission, carrying me down an aisle lined with strangers. Each step felt like walking into deeper water. I tried to focus on breathing, in through my nose, out through my mouth. But the incense was too thick, and my corset was too tight, and he was still staring at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. I cataloged details to keep from breaking. The two men standing just behind him, clearly security despite their expensive suits. One was massive, built like a wall, with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. The other was leaner, watchful, his hand resting casually near where I suspected he kept a gun. Neither looked at me. They scanned the crowd, the windows, the doors. Constant motion tracking threats. The priest looked uncomfortable, his hands fidgeting with his Bible. He was young, too, with sweat beading at his hairline despite the cool air. And then I was there, standing beside Dante Moretti, close enough to smell him. Expensive cologne layered over something darker, richer. Leather and smoke and something metallic that made me think of blood. He turned to face me fully, and I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. He was tall, at least 6'2", and standing this close, I could see the small details that made him real instead of a nightmare. The shadow of stubble along his jaw, the tiny scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the way his lips parted slightly as his gaze dropped to my mouth. Sophia. My name in his voice was velvet over steel, deep, with the faintest trace of an accent that suggested his family hadn't been in America for more than a generation or two. "You look beautiful." I wanted to spit at him, scream, run. Instead, I stood frozen as he reached up and slowly, deliberately, lifted my veil. His fingers brushed my cheek, just barely, just enough to make me flinch, and something flashed in his eyes. Satisfaction? Possession? "Don't be afraid," he murmured, so quiet only I could hear. "I'm not going to hurt you." The word burned in my throat, but I couldn't force it out, because there was something in his voice that didn't match the situation, something almost tender. It made no sense. This man had bought me, forced me into a wedding dress and a church full of criminals. He was a monster. So why was he looking at me like I was something precious? The priest cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved." The ceremony passed in fragments. Words I didn't process. Vows I didn't mean. When it came time for Dante to place the ring on my finger, I watched his hands, large, long-fingered, surprisingly elegant, and noticed the scars across his knuckles. Old ones, white against his olive skin. Evidence of violence that had healed over but never really disappeared. The ring was platinum and diamonds, heavy and cold. A shackle dressed as jewelry. "You may kiss the bride." Dante's hand cupped my face, tilting my chin up with his thumb. His touch was gentle, too gentle for a man who could order deaths with a phone call. His eyes searched mine for something I didn't understand, and then his mouth descended. The kiss was soft, careful. Nothing like what I'd expected from a man who'd forced me here. His lips moved against mine with a tenderness that made my chest ache. And when he pulled back, his thumb brushed across my cheekbone, catching a tear I hadn't known I'd shed. "Mine," he breathed against my lips, so quiet I almost didn't hear it. Finally, mine. The word should have terrified me. Instead, it sent something hot and confusing spiraling through my stomach. The church erupted in applause, hollow, obligatory. Dante's hand found the small of my back, possessive and warm through the silk of my dress, and he guided me back down the aisle. I felt hundreds of eyes on us, judging, calculating, wondering if I'd last, wondering if I'd break. Outside, the afternoon sun felt like a slap after the dim church. A line of black cars waited, all identical, all gleaming. Dante opened the door of the middle one himself, his other hand never leaving my back, and helped me into the leather interior. The door closed with a heavy thunk, soundproof. Dante slid in beside me, and suddenly the spacious back seat felt suffocating, his thigh pressed against mine, all hard muscle and heat. The driver pulled away without needing instruction, and I watched the church disappear through the tinted windows. Where are we going? My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Home. He was watching me again, that intense focus that made me feel simultaneously exposed and invisible. Our home. I don't have a home anymore. Bitterness leaked through. You made sure of that. His jaw tightened. Your father made sure of that when he stole from me. He was grieving. The words exploded out of me. My mother had just died and he wasn't thinking straight. He made mistakes, but he didn't deserve. He stole $3 million, Sophia. Dante's voice was calm, almost conversational, which somehow made it worse. From my family's shipment, money that belonged to people far less forgiving than me. If I hadn't acted, they would have. And they wouldn't have been satisfied with debt repayment. I turned to look at him fully, anger burning away my fear. So you decided to collect me instead? Like I'm property? Like you're my wife? His hand shot out, catching my chin in a grip that was firm but not painful. He forced me to meet his eyes, and what I saw there made my breath catch. Hunger. Raw, barely contained hunger that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with the way his gaze kept dropping to my mouth. You are my wife now, Sophia. Mine to protect. Mine to keep. And anyone who tries to touch what's mine will learn exactly why people fear the Moretti name. The estate appeared through the trees, like something out of a fever dream. All stone and iron gates that opened without Dante needing to signal. The driveway curved through manicured gardens that probably required a full-time staff, past fountains and marble statuary that belonged in museums. Not front yards. I'd known he was wealthy. You didn't become a mafia boss by being poor. But this was obscene. Old money and new violence mixed into something that made my small apartment above the bodega look like a cardboard box. The car stopped in front of massive double doors. Before I could reach for the handle, Dante was already there, opening it, offering his hand. I ignored it and climbed out on my own, my wedding dress catching on the doorframe. I heard the fabric tear, a small, satisfying sound of rebellion. His lips twitched, almost a smile. Almost. Stubborn, he murmured. Good. I hate fragile things. Then you should have married someone else. I lifted my chin, trying to channel courage I didn't feel. I didn't ask for this. I don't want this. And I certainly don't want you. Now he did smile, and it transformed his face from beautiful to devastating. You will. The arrogance should have made me hate him more. Instead, it sent heat crawling up my neck. I blamed shock, stress, anything except the traitorous flutter in my stomach when his hand settled on my lower back again, guiding me toward the doors. They opened before we reached them. A woman stood in the entrance, 50s, impeccably dressed, with kind eyes that seemed out of place in this world. Welcome home, Mr. Moretti, Mrs. Moretti. Mrs. Moretti. The name felt like a brand. Sophia, this is Maria. She manages the household. Dante's thumb moved in small circles against my spine, a gesture that seemed unconscious but felt deliberately possessive. Anything you need, she'll arrange it. Your room is ready. My room? I looked up at him sharply. Not our room? Something dark flickered across his face. Did you want to share my bed tonight, little wife? Because I'm more than willing to consummate this marriage right now if that's what you're asking for. My face burned. That's not... I didn't mean... I know what you meant. His voice dropped lower, intimate, despite Maria standing right there. You'll have your own space until you're ready. I'm not an animal, Sophia. I don't force women into my bed. No, you just force them into marriage. His jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought I'd pushed too far. Then he turned to Maria. Show her to her suite. Make sure she has everything she needs. And Maria... His eyes met mine again, burning with that inexplicable intensity. Don't let her leave the estate. For her own protection. Protection. Another word for prison. Maria led me through rooms that blurred together. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art that probably cost more than my father's debts. I counted security cameras in every corner. Noticed the men stationed at strategic points, all wearing suits that didn't quite hide their weapons. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. Here we are. Maria opened a door at the end of a long hallway, and I stepped into a bedroom that could have fit my entire old apartment 3 times over. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens lit by the setting sun. A massive 4-poster bed dominated one wall, dressed in silk sheets that probably cost more than a month's rent. Everything was cream and gold and soft, like a cage built for a pampered bird. The closet is through there. Maria gestured to a door on the left. Mr. Moretti had it stocked with clothing in your size. Shoes, accessories, everything. The bathroom is through the other door. If you need anything, how long? The question came out hoarse. How long have I been observed? Maria's expression turned pitying. I don't know those details, dear, but Mr. Moretti is very thorough in everything he does. She left me alone in the beautiful prison, and I immediately went to the windows. They didn't open. Locked from the outside, probably. I could see the grounds stretching out below. More gardens, a pool, what looked like a guest house, and everywhere, men patrolling, watching. I turned to the closet out of morbid curiosity and found exactly what Maria had promised. Racks of dresses, casual clothes, everything from designer jeans to evening gowns. All my size. All brands I'd never been able to afford. I grabbed a simple pair of black pants and a soft sweater, desperate to get out of the wedding dress that felt like it was suffocating me. The bathroom was all marble and gold fixtures, with a tub big enough to swim in. I caught sight of myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. My dark hair had been curled and pinned. My makeup applied by professionals who'd arrived that morning. I looked like a bride, like someone who'd chosen this. I scrubbed my face until my skin burned, tore the pins from my hair until it fell in tangled waves around my shoulders. Better, more like myself, less like property. A knock on the bedroom door made me freeze. Sophia? Dinner is ready. Dante's voice, low and smooth and somehow already familiar. I didn't answer, but I heard the door open anyway. Of course. His house. His rules. When I emerged from the bathroom in my borrowed clothes, he was standing by the windows, still in his wedding suit, but with his jacket discarded and his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and scattered with more scars. He'd loosened his tie, and something about that small concession to comfort made him seem more human, more dangerous. He turned when he heard me, and his gaze traveled slowly from my bare feet to my wet hair. You look more comfortable. I'm not comfortable. I'm trapped. I crossed my arms over my chest. You said I couldn't leave. That's called kidnapping. That's called keeping you alive. He moved toward me with that predatory grace I'd noticed in the church. Your father's associates aren't the only ones who know about his debts, Sophia. There are people who would use you to get to me now that you're my wife, people who would hurt you just to send me a message. Then divorce me. Send me away. I'll disappear. No. The word was absolute, final. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. You're mine now. That means you stay where I can protect you, where I can see you, where I know you're safe. I don't need your protection. I need my freedom. His hand came up, and I flinched instinctively. He froze, something that looked like pain crossing his face. I told you, he said softly. I'm not going to hurt you, Sophia. I need you to believe that. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you even care? You don't know me. This is just business to you, isn't it? Collecting a debt? Is that what you think? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. That I forced you to marry me because of money? What else am I supposed to think? He was quiet for a long moment, studying me with those burning eyes. Then he stepped back, creating distance that somehow felt worse than closeness. Come have dinner. You haven't eaten all day. I'm not hungry. Sophia. My name was a warning. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm trying to be patient. I'm trying to give you space to adjust. But you need to eat. And you need to understand the rules here. Rules. I laughed bitterly. Of course there are rules. One rule. He held up a single finger. You don't leave the estate without me or my security. That's it. Everything else is yours to do as you please. You want to scream at me? Fine. You want to hate me? I can live with that. But you will not put yourself in danger because you're angry about a situation neither of us can change. You could change it. You could let me go. No. He moved to the door, then paused and looked back at me. I've waited too long for you, Sophia. I'm not letting you go now. Not ever. The words should have sounded threatening. Instead, they sounded almost anguished. He left before I could respond, and I stood alone in my golden cage, trying to understand what the hell he'd meant by that. Dinner was served in a dining room that could have seated 30 people, but it was just the two of us at one end of a table that stretched into shadow. Crystal glasses, fine china, food that smelled incredible and tasted like ash in my mouth. Dante ate with the same focused intensity he seemed to apply to everything, occasionally glancing up at me through dark lashes. He'd shed his tie completely now, unbuttoned his collar. I tried not to notice the hollow of his throat, the hint of tan skin beneath the white shirt. Tell me about yourself. His voice broke the silence. Why? You clearly already know everything. I know facts. Your age. Where you worked. That you were studying to be a nurse before your father died. He set down his fork, giving me that complete attention that felt like standing under a spotlight. I don't know you. And whose fault is that? I pushed food around my plate. Normal people date before they get married. Get to know each other. Fall in. I cut myself off. Fall in love? He finished for me, and something in his tone made my skin prickle. Is that what you wanted, Sophia? Romance? Courtship? I wanted a choice. Life rarely gives us those. He leaned back in his chair, and I noticed how the movement made his shirt pull tight across his chest. But I can give you honesty. Ask me anything. I'll answer. It was a trap. Had to be. But curiosity won over caution. Why me? Out of all the ways you could have collected my father's debt, why did you choose marriage? His expression shifted into something I couldn't read. What if I told you it wasn't about the debt? I'd say you were lying. I've never lied to you, Sophia. Not once. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and the candlelight caught the gold in his eyes. Your father's betrayal gave me an excuse. But the debt is already paid as far as I'm concerned. My heart hammered against my ribs. What are you saying? I'm saying I've known who you were for a long time. Longer than you'd believe. He stood abruptly, and I tensed. But he just walked to the windows overlooking the dark gardens. I saw you 2 years ago at the hospital where you were working. You were in the cafeteria during your break, studying for an exam. You had coffee and a muffin, and you were so focused you didn't notice when you got chocolate on your nose. I stared at his back, trying to process his words. 2 years ago, before my father's debts, before any of this, you smiled at a child who was crying. He continued, his voice softer now. Gave him your muffin and told him a story about a brave knight. He stopped crying. His mother thanked you, and you said it was nothing, just kindness. Dante, I watched you walk away and I couldn't stop thinking about you. He turned back to face me, and what I saw in his expression made my breath catch. Hunger. Longing. Obsession barely held in check. I told myself it was insane. That I had no business wanting someone like you, someone good and pure and completely untouched by my world. But I couldn't stay away. I had my people find out everything about you. Where you lived, where you worked, your favorite coffee shop. The route you took home every night. That's stalking. My voice came out shaky. Yes. He didn't even try to deny it. It is. And when I found out about your father's debt, when I realized I had a way to bind you to me legally, I took it. I'm not proud of manipulating the situation, but I won't apologize for wanting you, Sophia. For taking the only chance I might ever have to make you mine. The room felt too small suddenly. Too hot. You're insane. Probably. He moved toward me again, and this time I couldn't make myself back away. But I've spent 2 years watching you, wanting you, imagining what it would be like to have you look at me the way you looked at that child. With softness. With trust. His hand lifted, hesitating just before touching my face. I know you hate me right now. I know you're angry and scared and you think I'm a monster. And maybe I am. But I will spend every day proving that I can take care of you, that I can keep you safe, that marrying me wasn't the worst thing that could have happened to you. You forced me into this. Tears burned my eyes. You took away my choice, my future, everything. I gave you a future. His thumb brushed across my cheek, catching a tear. The gentleness of the gesture broke something in me. One where you're protected, provided for, where you never have to worry about money or safety or being alone. I know it's not what you wanted, but it's what I'm offering. The only thing I have to give. I don't want your money or your protection. The lie tasted bitter. I want my life back, then hate me. His hand cupped my face fully now, tilting my chin up. Scream at me, fight me, but do it from here, where I know you're safe, where I can see you every day and know that you're alive and breathing. And mine. The last word came out rough, almost broken. And suddenly I understood what I was seeing in his eyes, what I'd been seeing since the church. It wasn't just possession or control. It was desperation. Need. Like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. It terrified me, because somewhere in the past few hours, I'd started to see him too. Not as a monster or a villain or the man who destroyed my life, but as a man who looked at me like I was the only thing in the world worth looking at. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Knowing that somewhere in this massive house, Dante was awake too, thinking about me with that obsessive intensity that made my skin feel too tight. The bed was comfortable, too comfortable, like sleeping on a cloud. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. The way he'd looked at me during dinner, like he was memorizing every detail. The rough edge in his voice when he'd called me mine. The gentleness of his touch against my cheek, so at odds with everything I knew about him. A mafia boss. A criminal. A man who'd admitted to stalking me for 2 years. I should have been planning my escape. Instead, I was replaying the conversation, trying to understand the pieces that didn't fit. The tenderness in his eyes, the almost vulnerable way he'd said he wanted me to look at him with softness. When dawn finally broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I gave up on sleep and went to the windows. The grounds looked different in daylight. Less fortress, more estate. I could see the gardens properly now, paths winding through roses and hedges, a fountain in the center with bronze horses frozen mid-leap, and everywhere, men, patrolling, watching, protecting or imprisoning, depending on perspective. A soft knock made me turn. Maria entered with a tray, coffee, pastries, fresh fruit arranged like art. "Good morning, Mrs. Moretti. I thought you might want breakfast before..." "Before what?" "Mr. Moretti asked me to let you know he'll be in his office all morning handling business." She set the tray on a small table by the window. "He wanted me to show you around the estate. Help you get familiar with your new home, my new home." The words sat wrong in my mouth. "And if I don't want a tour?" Maria's smile was patient. "Then I'll be here if you need anything. But Mrs. Moretti, Sophia, if I may, this can be as difficult or as easy as you make it. Mr. Moretti isn't going to change his mind. And between you and me, I've worked for this family for 15 years. I've never seen him like this. The way he looks at you." She trailed off, shaking her head. "Just give it time, dear. Give him a chance." She left before I could argue, and I was alone with coffee that smelled like heaven and thoughts that felt like hell. I spent the morning exploring my gilded cage. The closet really did have everything. Clothes for every occasion, shoes that actually fit, jewelry I was afraid to touch. The bathroom had products I'd only ever seen in magazine advertisements. Everything chosen specifically for me, which meant Dante's observation had been even more thorough than I'd imagined. The thought should have made me angry. Instead, it made something twist low in my stomach, something that felt dangerously close to being wanted. By noon, I couldn't stay in the room anymore. I ventured into the hallway, half expecting someone to stop me. But the house seemed quiet, except for the distant sound of voices somewhere below. I followed the sound down a grand staircase, through rooms that showcased wealth I couldn't comprehend, until I found myself in a library that stole my breath, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books. Leather-bound first editions mixed with newer paperbacks, a ladder on rails to reach the higher shelves, windows that let in natural light to pool on Persian rugs. It was the kind of room I'd dreamed about as a child, back when books were my escape from a life that felt too small. Beautiful, isn't it? I spun around to find Dante leaning against the doorframe, watching me with that intensity that never seemed to dim. He'd changed from the wedding suit into dark jeans and a black sweater that somehow made him look more dangerous, more real. His hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it, and there were shadows under his eyes that matched mine. "You didn't sleep either," I said, before I could stop myself. "No." He pushed off the doorframe and moved into the room, but he kept his distance, like he was afraid of scaring me. "I kept thinking about what you said, about choice, about freedom. And you're right." He shoved his hands in his pockets, a gesture that seemed almost nervous. "I took those things from you, justified it by telling myself I was protecting you, but the truth is I was just selfish. I wanted you so badly I convinced myself the ends justified the means." I stared at him, unsure how to respond to this version of Dante, the one who seemed almost uncertain, almost human. "This library," he continued, gesturing around us. "It was my mother's. She died when I was 16. Cancer. My father had this room built for her, because she loved books more than anything except family." His voice went rough. "She used to tell me that the right person would make me understand why people write poetry, why they go to war, why they burn the world down just to keep one person safe." Dante. I didn't believe her. He looked at me then, and the raw emotion in his eyes made my chest ache. "Not until I saw you in that hospital cafeteria, smiling at a crying child. And then I understood. I understood why men become monsters. Because if someone tried to hurt you, Sophia, I would burn the entire world to ash." The words should have terrified me. Instead, they sent heat flooding through my veins, pooling low in my belly. "You don't even know me. I know you wake up early because you like watching the sunrise. I know you take your coffee with cream and 2 sugars. I know you volunteered at a free clinic every Tuesday, even though you were exhausted from your regular shifts. I know you cry at animal shelter commercials and you're afraid of spiders, but you won't kill them because you think all life has value." He took a step closer. "I know that when you're nervous, you twist your hair around your finger. When you're angry, you get this little crease between your eyebrows. When you're sad, you try to hide it by smiling, but your eyes give you away." Each word felt like a caress, like he was touching me even though he stood 3 feet away. "That's not knowing me. That's observing me. Then let me know you. Another step. Really know you. Let me earn what I took. Let me prove that I can be more than the man who forced you into this. And if I can't, if I'll always hate you for this," pain flashed across his face, "then I'll live with your hatred. As long as I know you're safe, as long as I can see you every day. I'll take whatever pieces of you you're willing to give me, Sophia. Hatred, anger, indifference. I'll take it all, and be grateful." The honesty in his voice broke something in me. This wasn't manipulation. This was confession. Like he was laying himself bare and hoping I wouldn't destroy him. "Why?" The question came out barely above a whisper. "Why me, Dante? What did you see that made you do this?" He closed the distance between us then, slowly, giving me time to move away. When I didn't, he lifted his hand and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my jaw, and I felt the calluses, the evidence of a life lived violently, but his touch was impossibly gentle. "I saw goodness," he said softly. "Real goodness. Not the kind people fake to get what they want. You helped that child because it was the right thing to do, not because anyone was watching. You smiled at him like his happiness mattered to you, even though you'd never see him again." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who only care about power and money and survival. And then I saw you, this bright spot in a dark world, and I couldn't look away. Didn't want to look away. I'm not some saint, Dante. I'm just perfect." The word was fierce. "You're perfect and you're mine, and I know I don't deserve you. but I'm too selfish to let you go." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He cursed under his breath, pulling it out and checking the screen. Whatever he saw made his expression harden, all that vulnerability disappearing behind a mask of cold authority. "I have to take this." He stepped back, and the loss of his warmth felt like a physical thing. "Marco will be right outside if you need anything. Don't leave the house, Sophia. Please." He was gone before I could argue, leaving me alone in his dead mother's library with my heart racing and my thoughts in chaos. 3 days passed in a strange routine. Dante would disappear for hours into his office, handling business that I didn't ask about because I wasn't sure I wanted to know. But he'd find me for meals, sitting across from me at that enormous dining table, and asking questions about my life, my dreams, my favorite books from the library I'd claimed as my sanctuary. He listened like every word mattered. Like I was telling him the secrets of the universe instead of rambling about nursing school or the stray cat I used to feed behind my old apartment building. And slowly, terrifyingly, I found myself softening. It was the small things that undid me. The way he always made sure my coffee was exactly how I liked it, how he'd noticed I was cold one evening, and the next day, every room I entered had a soft blanket waiting. The books that started appearing on my nightstand, titles I'd mentioned wanting to read, he was courting me. After forcing me to marry him, Dante Moretti was courting me with the kind of attentive care that made my chest ache. On the 4th morning, I woke to find a note slipped under my door. His handwriting was bold, decisive, like everything else about him. Garden. Noon. Please. The please made me smile despite myself. I found him in the rose garden, standing by the fountain with his hands in his pockets and his shoulders tense. He'd dressed casually again, jeans and a navy sweater, but he still looked like he belonged on a magazine cover. When he heard my footsteps, he turned, and his whole face transformed with relief. "You came. You said please." I stopped a few feet away, suddenly shy. "What's this about?" Instead of answering, he held out his hand. "Walk with me?" I hesitated, then placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and solid, and something in my chest loosened. This felt normal, like something a real couple would do. He led me down paths lined with roses in every color, past the fountain to a part of the garden I hadn't explored yet. And there, hidden behind a wall of climbing jasmine, was a greenhouse. "My mother's project," Dante explained, pushing open the glass door. She grew medicinal herbs, used to make teas and remedies for people in the neighborhood who couldn't afford doctors. Inside, the air was humid and fragrant with growing things. Raised beds filled with plants I recognized from my nursing studies. Lavender, chamomile, echinacea, feverfew. Someone had been maintaining them, keeping her legacy alive. I thought... He cleared his throat, and I realized he was nervous. Dante Moretti, mafia boss and feared criminal, was nervous talking to me. "I thought you might want to use this space for your nursing. I know you had to leave school, but you could still practice here. Help people. The families who work for me, they'd trust you, respect you." I turned to look at him, really look at him. "You'd let me do that? Help people connected to your world? I'd let you do anything that makes you happy, Sophia." His hand came up to cup my face, and this time I didn't flinch. "Even if it means putting yourself in danger, though I'd prefer you didn't. Even if it means you never forgive me for how this started, I just want to see you smile again. A real smile, not the polite ones you've been giving me at dinner." The honesty in his voice, the vulnerability in his eyes, it was too much. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to start caring about the man who'd forced me into marriage. But here I was, standing in his dead mother's greenhouse, looking at him and seeing not a monster, but a man who was desperately, obsessively in love with me. And the terrifying part was that I could feel myself falling too. "Thank you," I whispered, and watched something bright and fierce light up his eyes. "For this. For trying." His thumb traced my lower lip, and I felt the touch everywhere. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying, Sophia. Every single day." He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away, but I didn't. I let him close the distance, let his mouth brush against mine in a kiss that was nothing like the one at our wedding. This was heat and need, and barely restrained hunger. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head to deepen the kiss, and I gasped against his lips. He took advantage, his tongue sweeping into my mouth, tasting me like I was something rare and precious. My hands fisted in his sweater, pulling him closer, and he groaned. A low, desperate sound that sent liquid heat pooling between my thighs. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. "Tell me to stop. Tell me you're not ready, and I'll walk away right now. What if I don't want you to stop?" The words came out breathy, unfamiliar. This woman who was brave enough to want a dangerous man, I didn't know her, but I wanted to. His eyes went dark, pupils blown wide with desire. "Then I'm taking you upstairs and showing you exactly how thoroughly you belong to me." He didn't wait for permission. He swept me up into his arms like I weighed nothing, carrying me out of the greenhouse and across the garden. I should have protested, should have demanded he put me down. Instead, I buried my face in his neck, breathing in his scent, leather and smoke and something uniquely him. We passed Marco in the hallway, and I caught his knowing smirk before Dante kicked open a door I'd never entered. His bedroom, all dark wood and masculine elegance, dominated by a bed that looked sturdy enough to withstand anything. He set me down carefully, and I had a moment to look around, to see the books stacked on his nightstand, the jacket thrown over a chair, the evidence of a life lived in this space. Then his hands were on me, pulling me back against his chest, his mouth hot against my neck. "Last chance," he murmured against my skin. "Tell me no, and I'll take you back to your room. No judgment, no pressure." I turned in his arms and reached up to cup his face, feeling the stubble rough against my palms. "I don't want to say no." Something savage flashed across his features. Thank God. His mouth crashed down on mine, and this kiss was nothing like the careful ones before. This was possession, claiming, need stripped bare. He walked me backward until my legs hit the bed, then followed me down, his weight pressing me into the mattress. I should have felt trapped. Instead, I felt safe, protected, wanted in a way I'd never experienced. His hands moved over me, mapping every curve through my clothes like he was memorizing me by touch. When he reached the hem of my sweater, he paused, his eyes meeting mine in silent question. I nodded, and he pulled it off in one smooth motion, leaving me in just my bra and jeans. "Beautiful," he breathed, his gaze traveling over me with an intensity that made me shiver. "So fucking beautiful." His mouth found my collarbone, trailing kisses down to the swell of my breasts. When he reached behind me to unhook my bra, I grabbed his wrist. "Your turn." A slow smile curved his lips, the first real smile I'd seen from him, and it transformed his face completely. He sat back and pulled his sweater over his head, revealing a body that made my mouth go dry. Sculpted muscle and tan skin, scattered with scars that told stories of violence survived. A tattoo covered his left shoulder and chest, an intricate design of a phoenix rising from flames, wings spread wide. I traced the bird with trembling fingers. What does it mean? Rebirth. His hand covered mine, pressing it against his heart. I could feel it racing beneath my palm. I got it after my mother died, a reminder that even when everything burns down, something new can rise from the ashes. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest tight. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was letting me see him. Really, see him. All the broken pieces he kept hidden from the world. I pulled him back down to me, kissing him with everything I couldn't put into words. His groan vibrated against my lips as his hands moved to my jeans, unbuttoning and sliding them down my legs. When I was bare except for my underwear, he pulled back to look at me, and what I saw in his expression stole my breath. Wonder, reverence, like he couldn't believe I was real. 2 years, he said roughly. I've spent 2 years imagining this. Imagining you in my bed, looking at me like you don't hate me, and the reality is so much better than any fantasy. He stripped off the rest of his clothes, and I tried not to stare. Tried and failed. He was magnificent, all hard muscle and lethal grace, fully aroused and unashamed. When he settled between my thighs, the weight of him, the heat, it was overwhelming in the best way. If I hurt you, he started, but I cut him off with a kiss. You won't. He proved me right. Every touch was careful, worshipful, designed to bring me pleasure. When he finally slid inside me, filling me completely, we both gasped. He held still, his forehead pressed to mine, his breath coming in harsh pants. Mine, he whispered. Finally mine. Then he started to move, and I forgot everything except the feeling of him. The connection between us, the way he said my name like a prayer. It was intense and overwhelming and perfect. When I shattered around him, he followed, my name on his lips like a benediction. Afterwards, he held me close, his heartbeat strong beneath my ear. I love you. He murmured into my hair. I know it's too soon. I know I have no right. But I've loved you since that day in the hospital, and I'll love you until my last breath. I should have been afraid of that kind of devotion. Instead, curled in his arms with his scent surrounding me, I felt something dangerous blooming in my chest. Something that felt suspiciously like love. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful confessions. Dante still disappeared for business, but he always came back to me. We'd have dinner together, talking about everything and nothing. He'd find me in the library and read beside me in comfortable silence. At night, I'd end up in his bed, learning his body and letting him learn mine. I was falling. God help me. I was falling for my captor, but the outside world couldn't stay away forever. On a Tuesday morning, I woke to shouting. Dante's voice, sharp with command, coming from somewhere downstairs. I threw on a robe and hurried down, following the sound to his office. The door was ajar, and through it, I could see Dante behind a massive desk, his face carved from stone. Marco stood beside him, along with 2 other men I didn't recognize. And across from them, my blood turned to ice. Please, the man was saying, and I recognized him. Vincent Calabresi, one of my father's old friends. Just give me more time. I can get the money. You've had 6 months. Dante's voice was cold, emotionless. This was the mafia boss I'd heard about, not the man who held me gently in the dark. The agreement was clear. You knew the consequences of failing to deliver. But my daughter, she's sick. The treatments. I had to use the money for her treatments. That's not my problem. I must have made a sound, because suddenly every eye in the room turned to me. Dante's expression shifted immediately from cold authority to concern. Sophia, his daughter is sick? I stepped into the room, ignoring Marco's warning look. How old? Vincent looked at me with desperate hope. 7. She has leukemia. The treatments are expensive and... Sophia, this doesn't concern you. Dante stood, moving around the desk toward me. Go back upstairs. No. I planted my feet, meeting his eyes. You told me you'd let me help people. Let me help him. This is business. This is a man trying to save his daughter's life. I turned to Vincent. How much do you owe? Sophia. Dante's voice held a warning. How much? I repeated. 200,000. Vincent whispered. I looked at Dante. At this man I was falling in love with and made a choice. Forgive his debt. The room went silent. Marco's eyes widened. The other men looked shocked, but Dante just stared at me, his expression unreadable. You don't understand what you're asking, he said quietly. I understand perfectly. You told me you'd burn the world for me. So burn this debt. Please. Something shifted in his eyes. If I do this, if I show mercy here, others will see it as weakness. They'll think they can take advantage. Let them think what they want. I moved closer, close enough to place my hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat spike beneath my palm. Show them that Dante Moretti's wife has influence, that I'm not just some trophy you keep locked away. Show them that you value my opinion enough to grant mercy when I ask for it. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the war happening behind his eyes. Business versus emotion, power versus love. Then he looked at Vincent. The debt is forgiven, he said, his voice carrying absolute authority. On one condition, your daughter gets the best treatment available, and you bring her to see my wife when she's better. Sophia likes children. She'll want to know the girl as well. Vincent's face crumpled with relief. Thank you. God, thank you. Thank her. Dante nodded toward me. And understand this. You owe her everything now. That means if she ever needs anything, anything at all, you answer, without question. Understood? Yes. Yes, of course. Anything. Marco ushered Vincent out, and suddenly Dante and I were alone in his office. He pulled me into his arms, burying his face in my neck. Do you have any idea what you just did? He murmured against my skin. I helped someone. You showed weakness. My weakness. He pulled back to look at me, and I saw fear in his eyes. People will know now that they can use you against me. That hurting you is the fastest way to hurt me. Then protect me. I cupped his face. You're already so good at it. He laughed, but it sounded pained. I can't protect you from everything, Sophia. And now that the families know how much you mean to me, they'll come after you. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. Someone will try to take you from me. Let them try. I kissed him softly. I'm not going anywhere. But even as I said it, even as he held me tight and whispered promises against my lips, I felt the first whisper of unease. Because in Dante's world, love wasn't just a gift, it was a weapon. And I'd just painted a target on my back. The attack came 3 days later. I was in the greenhouse, transplanting herbs and humming to myself, when I heard the first gunshot. The sound shattered the peaceful afternoon like glass breaking, and for a moment, I froze, my hands buried in soil, unable to process what I'd heard. Then chaos erupted. More shots, rapid fire, coming from the front of the estate. Shouting, the sound of vehicles screeching. Marco burst through the greenhouse door, his gun drawn, his face grim. Mrs. Moretti, we need to move, now. What's happening? Now. He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward a door I'd never noticed before, hidden behind a wall of climbing vines. It opened to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. There's a safe room. You'll be secure there until... The greenhouse exploded in a shower of glass. I screamed as Marco threw himself over me, covering my body with his as shards rained down around us. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard him cursing, felt wetness that I realized with horror was his blood. Marco. Go! He shoved me toward the stairs. Lock yourself in. Don't open for anyone except Mr. Moretti or me. Go! I ran, my feet bare and bleeding from the glass, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. The stairs seemed endless, spiraling down into a basement I hadn't known existed. At the bottom, a steel door with a keypad. Marco had shouted numbers at me. I punched them in with shaking fingers, sobbing with relief when the lock clicked open. Inside was a room designed for exactly this scenario. Reinforced walls, monitors showing security feeds from around the estate, weapons locked in a cabinet, supplies for a long siege. I slammed the door shut and engaged the locks, then collapsed against it, trying to breathe through the panic. On the monitors, I could see the battle unfolding. Men in black tactical gear had breached the gates, pouring onto the grounds. Dante's security was fighting back, but they were outnumbered. And there, my breath caught, was Dante himself, moving with lethal grace, a gun in each hand, taking down attackers with the cold efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. This was what I'd been protected from seeing. This was the reality of Dante's world. Violence and blood and death dealt out as casually as breathing. I watched him fight his way toward the house, toward me, and realized with stunning clarity that I couldn't lose him. Not now. Not when I'd finally admitted to myself that I loved him. The monitors showed the attackers retreating, leaving bodies scattered across the manicured lawn. Dante was shouting orders, coordinating his men, checking casualties. I saw him grab Marco, thank God Marco was alive, and say something urgent. Marco pointed toward the greenhouse, and Dante took off running. I counted the seconds until I heard footsteps thundering down the stairs. Then his voice, rough and desperate. Sophia, open the door. My hands fumbled with the locks. The door flew open, and suddenly I was crushed against his chest. His arms like steel bands around me, his face buried in my hair. Are you hurt? His hands moved over me frantically, checking for injuries. Did they touch you? Did anyone? I'm fine. Marco protected me. I pulled back to look at him and gasped. Blood streaked his face, his shirt torn and stained. "You're hurt. Not my blood." He cupped my face in hands that shook slightly. "When I heard the explosion, when I saw the greenhouse destroyed," his voice broke. "I thought I'd lost you. Thought I was too late. I'm here. I'm okay." I covered his hands with mine. "Who were they?" His expression hardened. "The Russo family. They thought taking you would cripple me. Send a message." He pressed his forehead to mine. "If anything had happened to you, but it didn't. Your security held them off. You held them off. This time." The words were bitter. "But there will be others, Sophia. As long as you're with me, you'll be in danger. People will see you as my weakness, my vulnerability." I understood what he was offering, an out, a chance to run, to choose the safe life I'd lost when my father made his fatal mistakes. "I'm not leaving," I said firmly. "Sophia, I'm not leaving." "You told me you'd spend your life trying to earn what you took. Well, I'm giving it to you freely now. All of it. My trust, my heart, my future. I choose this, Dante. I choose you." The emotion that crossed his face was almost painful to witness. "You don't know what you're saying. The fear, the adrenaline. I know exactly what I'm saying." I stood on my toes to kiss him, tasting blood and smoke and him. "I love you. I probably started loving you when you showed me the greenhouse, when you tried so hard to give me back the pieces of my life you'd taken, when you looked at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. You are." His voice was fierce. "You're everything, Sophia. My reason for breathing. The only good thing in my entire goddamn life." He kissed me then, hard and desperate, like he was trying to pour all his fear and relief and love into the contact. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "I need to handle this. Need to send a message that anyone who comes after you will face consequences they can't imagine." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "But first, I need to know you're truly safe. Come with me." He led me up the stairs, through a house that now bore evidence of the attack. Bullet holes in walls, shattered windows, blood on the marble floors. Staff were already cleaning, repairing, erasing the violence like it had never happened. This was their normal. In his office, Dante pulled out his phone and made a series of calls. I listened to him arrange meetings, issue threats, consolidate power. This was the mafia boss the world feared. Cold, calculating, absolutely ruthless. But when he looked at me between calls, his eyes softened. For me, he was still just the man who brought me coffee exactly how I liked it. "The Russo family will be dealt with by morning," he said when the last call ended. "They'll understand that touching you means war, a war they can't win, more death." I felt sick. Because of me. Because of them. He pulled me onto his lap, wrapping his arms around me. "They made the choice to attack. I'm just making sure they regret it." We sat like that for a long time, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, his hand stroking my hair. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, like fire, like rebirth. "Marry me again," Dante said suddenly. I pulled back to look at him. "We're already married." "I know, but the first time, you had no choice. You stood in that church hating me, terrified, forced into vows you didn't mean." His hands cupped my face. "I want to do it right this time. I want you to walk down that aisle choosing me, wanting me. I want to hear you say those vows and know you mean every word." Tears burned my eyes. "You're asking me to marry you? I'm begging you to marry me." He smiled, and it was beautiful and vulnerable and so full of love it made my chest ache. "Be my wife, not because you have to, but because you want to, because you love me even though I'm a monster. Because you see the man beneath the violence and choose him anyway." "Yes." The word came out choked with tears. "Yes, I'll marry you. Again. As many times as you want." He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And I knew that this moment, this choice, was the real Everything beginning. Before had been prologue. The second wedding was nothing like the first. We held it in the garden 2 weeks later, just as summer turned to autumn. No crowds of criminals and curious eyes, just the people who mattered. Maria, Marco with his arm in a sling, a handful of Dante's most trusted men, and Vincent Calabrese with his daughter, 7 years old and in remission, clutching flowers she'd picked herself. I wore a simple white dress that I'd chosen myself, my hair loose and crowned with roses from the greenhouse, and when I walked down the path toward Dante, I did it with a smile on my face and love in my heart. He looked at me like I was a miracle, like he still couldn't believe I was real. The priest, a different one, older, with kind eyes, kept the ceremony short and simple. When it came time for vows, Dante took my hands in his. "I promise to protect you," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "to cherish you, to spend every day earning the gift of your love. I promise to be the man you deserve, even when I fail, to try harder, to be better. Because you make me want to be better, Sophia. You make me believe I can be more than the violence I was born into." I squeezed his hands, tears streaming down my face. "I promise to stand beside you, to trust you. To see the man you really are, not the one the world thinks you are. I promise to love you through the darkness, through the fear, through everything this life will throw at us. Because you're worth it, Dante. We're worth it." When he kissed me this time, it was soft and reverent, a promise of forever. The celebration afterwards was small, but joyful. Maria had prepared a feast. Someone had strung lights through the trees that twinkled like stars as night fell. Marco toasted us with champagne, his eyes suspiciously wet. Vincent's daughter presented me with her flowers, and I hugged her tight, thinking about the life Dante had saved by forgiving that debt. As the evening wore on, Dante pulled me away from the party to a quiet corner of the garden where jasmine perfumed the air. "Happy?" he asked, pulling me into his arms, deliriously. I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Though I never imagined my life would turn out like this. Married to a mobster, married to the love of my life who happens to be a mobster. I tilted my head back to look at him. "There's a difference." He laughed, the sound free and genuine. "You're insane. You know that, right? Any sane person would have run." "Probably." I traced the line of his jaw. "But where's the fun in sanity?" He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I felt the promise in it, the forever we'd just committed to. It wouldn't be easy. Loving a man like Dante Moretti never would be. There would be more attacks, more violence, more darkness to navigate, but there would also be mornings in the greenhouse, teaching neighborhood children about healing herbs, quiet evenings in the library, reading while he worked beside me, nights in his arms where the rest of the world disappeared and there was only us. I'd started this journey as a prisoner, a debt payment, property to be collected and kept. Now I was a wife, a partner, a woman who'd found love in the most unexpected place and chosen to keep it, despite everything. "What are you thinking?" Dante murmured against my hair. "That my father's debt was the worst thing that ever happened to me." I pulled back to meet his eyes, and the best, because it brought me to you. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face. "I spent 2 years watching you, wanting you, thinking you were completely out of my reach. And now you're here, mine, choosing to stay. Always, I promised, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. Until death do us part," he finished, and kissed me as fireworks exploded overhead. Marco's idea, probably, painting the sky in gold and silver. We stood there together, wrapped in each other, while the world celebrated around us. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that I'd made the right choice. I'd chosen love over fear, partnership over freedom, a dangerous man with a gentle heart over a safe life that would have never been quite enough. I'd chosen Dante Moretti, and I'd choose him again, every single day, for the rest of my life. The greenhouse still stood, rebuilt and beautiful. The library still held endless worlds in its shelves. The garden still bloomed with roses and jasmine and the promise of new growth. And in the center of it all, we stood, two broken people who'd found wholeness in each other. A love story that had started with force and fear but had bloomed into something real and rare and absolutely worth fighting for. This was my life now, my choice, my forever. And God help anyone who tried to take it from me.